This is Jeremy with Clarity, and in this video, we'll be going over gait and the phases involved with it. To start, gait is a learned, cyclical, bipedal, biphasic movement pattern with ground contact in humans. Gait is learned because we aren't born with the ability to walk, run, or jog. It is developed. We have to crawl before we walk. Everybody's heard that saying, and it applies here as well. It's cyclical because once we do so, it occurs over and over and over again. The movement pattern doesn't necessarily change too much, assuming that we are walking on a flat ground or flat surface, but the same movement occurs over and over. It's bipedal because we have 2 legs or 2 feet, both actually, which is different than what would be, say, with a dog or a cat. And it's biphasic because it's made up of 2 phases. Those 2 phases are the stance and swing phases. The stance and swing phases are both associated with gait, and those are the 2 phases that characterize it. The stance phase is associated with a closed kinetic chain, whereas the swing phase is associated with an open kinetic chain. Now, what exactly does that mean? Closed kinetic chain refers to a movement in which the distal segment of the body is fixed. So anytime our leg is in contact with the ground, that is in stance phase. And anytime our leg is in the air, that is in swing phase. So the distal segment is fixed. An example of a movement other than our foot being in contact with the ground during gait that is also associated with a closed kinetic chain would be a squat. And so our feet are fixed and flat on the ground. They don't leave the ground during the movement. Therefore, that is a closed kinetic chain movement. Whereas something in open kinetic chain, where the distal segment is free, would be more like a leg extension or hamstring curl, where that lower leg and foot is allowed to move. Furthermore, gait is evaluated primarily in the sagittal and coronal planes. In the sagittal plane, the primary joints that we are evaluating are the knee and the hip. And with the coronal plane, the primary joint we are evaluating is the ankle, more specifically the subtalar joint. Now that we've defined gait, we can talk a little bit more about the stance and swing phases before we get into all the specifics.